That's why my nickname for you is Goldilocks Hank.
Broadcasting live from the Goldilocks South, it's the Dabble Q&A show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly 60-day novel challenge live show with your wonderful hosts, Abby Matthews, Hank Garner, and myself, Doug Lansborough, and maybe Robert Smith joining us, but we're not totally sure. If he does, it's a nice surprise. Like, I don't know, finding candy in... not in your food. That's a choking hazard, actually. But it's just a nice surprise.
Candy in my food sounds amazing.
If you know it's there, or if you like recognize it in time. Oh, he's in the shadows. He's on the other side of the screen. There's a lot of chatting going on today, and I see that Bond's here, and Bernadette, and NJ, and Manny, and Berlin, and Stephanie, and Beacon, and TW, and Athena, and AR. Who AR? Where was the message that I wanted to highlight? Sorry, Hilder's here as I find the message I wanted to point out. Boom. AR's over 50,000 words. I don't know if that's just in the last 6 days. If it is, more power to you. That's awesome. Dude. Either way, it's an accomplishment. And who else? I think I've said hi. Ella, hello. And let me keep scrolling here. GGTY, good game, thank you, is how I interpret that. That's just my gamer speak coming in. David's here, and Rob, and Emily, and Robert, of course. Robert Smith, our fearless leader here on the Dabble marketing team. And Brianna's here. Hello. Brianna saying, like, finding a hidden clutch of eggs from free-ranging chickens. I wish I knew what that was like.
Well, that's why then I said... you better float them, because I have found a clutch of eggs from free-ranging chickens, and you don't know how old those things are. You gotta float them to see if they're still good.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that means, then you must not live on a farm like me, or in the South, like Goldilocks Hank down there.
Goldilocks. Yeah, it was enjoyable reading all the discussion about our different accents too, because you never like when you're from somewhere, you never think you have an accent, but you have an accent to the rest of the world. And when I play video games, I play them with a bunch of gentlemen from the US. And so whenever I say something like, I'm out of something, or I'm about to go do something, they always go, "You're ootin' a boot." And
I will have to say, over the roughly 4 years that I've known you, Doug, your oats and a boats have mellowed.
Whoa.
You're just getting used to them.
Maybe. That's could be. By the way,
right.
Bond pointed out, you don't know Jack was the greatest video game ever invented. I stand 10 toes down on business.
GGTY or Garganti corrected in a way, I guess, said it was okay if I thought it was a good game, thank you, but really a shortened version of their pen name. Okay, excellent.
Nice.
Ella, people always know I'm Canadian when I say sorry.
Sorry.
And then there's varying levels of Canadian too, especially if you go out east. Gets very, very accented out there. Anyway,
I thought you were in the east.
No, I'm central. I'm in Ontario.
I still think of that as being east.
We don't. So there's the East Coast, which are your maritime provinces. We're getting a little lesson now before we dive into it. So you have PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and Labrador. And then once you get farther west than New Brunswick, you hit Quebec, who have their own personality. And then you hit Ontario.
And their own language.
And they're, yeah.
My brother married one of them, so.
And then you have the prairie provinces in between Ontario and British Columbia, which is the West Coast, and then you have the territories up north. So anyway, that's enough of a distraction. Beth's here as well, and Star's here too.
That's just you two. You're just et al.
Yeah, that's okay.
Et al.
I like it. That's what I'm going to refer to you as now.
All right.
Okay.
This week was
we need t-shirts. We need last interruption.
Yeah.
We need t-shirts. Abby, yours should say Abby.
Et al.
And Doug should say at, and mine will say all.
I'm writing it down.
Okay, carry on. Can we get to something serious?
Yeah, we're here for work. So this week is the first full week of November, and we still have a few days left, and we got a couple bonus days in there as well since November started on Saturday. But this is our first full week of writing for the 60-day novel challenge. And just a reminder, the vast majority of us are aiming to write 50,000 words in 30 days in the month of November. And if you're writing every single day, that's 1,667 words per day that you're aiming for, which is no small feat, especially once we get towards the end of it. But hopefully in this first week, you have a lot of enthusiasm, you have a lot of motivation. You're joining us for our daily sprints at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, or you're participating in some of the community-led sprints getting posted over at Dabble Campus. Abby, Hank, how has the start of the writing portion of the challenge gone for you both?
Oh, I'm already halfway through my book.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
I'm already
10,000 words.
I'm at 20,755 words.
20,000, very nice. I should hit 10,000 by tonight, so I'm much behind, but that's okay. I'm gonna be honest, and maybe this is a topic for conversation. I have been struggling to actually sit my butt down and write for extended periods of time. I'm getting like 10-minute session in, and then like going and working for an hour.
Well, boy,
minus yesterday.
You do know this is November, right?
I do know it's November. Abby, give me some tips.
Oh my gosh, this is what we talked about. Like, I literally did an hour workshop on this last night.
Literally.
Cohorts about how to hack your brain to get your BUTT in the chair and get the words done.
I don't want to just copy the cohort, but give me like 3.
Okay, so here's the science behind the sprints. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 things going on when you're sprinting. First of all, hold on, I got to pull up some of these phrases really fast because it was such a great turn of phrase. Mental effort is contagious. Okay, so if you know other people are writing at the same time that you're writing, and they are waiting for you to report back what you did, and you're waiting to hear from them, that mental effort is contagious. So you will automatically write more because your social brain feels the pressure and will not let your rational brain procrastinate. So that's one thing. So the sprints are super helpful for that reason. Now, the second thing is the whole Pomodoro technique works because your brain cannot focus for a very extended period of time before your focus starts to fall off. So the idea is if you take a 5-minute break before the focus starts to drop, you have a higher average level of focus over the course of multiple Pomodoro sprints. So the idea is just before your focus starts to tank, you take a 5-minute break. If you walk around or do something rote, your brain is actually still marinating on what is happening in your story. So when you sit back down, oftentimes your brain will offer a solution that you couldn't come to before because your focus was starting to drop, but you've just reset your brain. And now you can continue.
Awesome.
So the other thing, and this is the last one that I'll just say super fast, is single task it. Do not multitask. And this is one of the things that NaNoWriMo is fantastic for, is because it does not give you time to edit. So if your brain goes back and forth between writing and editing, you're wasting mental energy because your brain has to reset the rules for each task every time you go back. You go up a couple paragraphs and you suddenly start to edit. You're slowing yourself down. So you should always separate drafting time and editing time. Boom.
Awesome. Those are
you guys don't need me anymore. I'll see you next week.
Yeah. See you. Bye.
Can I say something about what your tip before this last one? I have come to realize that the sitting and thinking about what to write and that mental anguish is a rookie move. If you sit down and it's just not coming, get up and go do something else, and trust your subconscious mind that the problem you're having will work itself out if you just ignore it, go do something completely different, then come back when you're ready to write. The sitting and
Swirling.
worrying over it, and the frustration that builds is a productivity killer.
Yeah, it's why I drink so much coffee. Is because when I hit a spot and I'm like, I don't know what to do, I better just go make myself a cup of coffee, because all that takes is 5 minutes to walk into the kitchen, make my little espresso, come back, sit down. That's all it takes sometimes. Then I'm hyped up on 8 shots of espresso before 5 a.m.
Okay, folks, thumbs up, bomb. Thanks, Bon.
It also doesn't help. I think those are excellent tips, and I'm of course going to use them. It doesn't help that at least here in most of North America, time change happened on Sunday, and I know we technically gained an hour, but I'm waking up at like 4. It's cold out now. It snowed last night.
Because you're old. That's why it's bothering you now, Doug. It's because you're old. Just so you know.
I'm ancient.
Okay. This is my frustration with fall time change, is that, like Doug said, I wake up when I used to wake up, but now it's an hour earlier. And then I look around, I was like, well, it's not time to get up yet. So I go back to sleep and then, then wake up to an alarm, which I never do. I never wake up to an alarm, but I always have a backup alarm set, but I turn it off before. But then you're like all out of sorts when you wake up because you fell back asleep. And
see, I'm waking up when I used to, but I'm going to bed when I'm supposed to based on the current time.
But you're snowing now, and I would apologize for that snow, but I'm not going to. You know why? Because now you have no excuse to go outside, and you just need to sit inside and write.
Except my dog, and eventually shoveling the snow, snubbling the show.
Or snuggling the snow, whichever.
Speaking of the show, let's get back on track here because we had some excellent tips to kick us off, and let's carry it on. So first things first, a large portion of this show is going to be dedicated to Q&A. So if you have any of those Qs, we have the A's. We have the answers. So go ahead and drop them in the chat.
A's. Some of us are A's. I'm just going to point that out.
But we are talking about the first act today because this being the first week of the challenge, that is probably what you're writing this week. So there is a lesson that dropped on Monday. As I'm rambling here, I'm going to navigate in the back end and, find that for you and put it in the chat. So sneakily like that you don't even know I'm doing it. And we're going to briefly go over what the elements of the first act are and talk about our inciting incident, our ordinary world, our first plot point a little bit here. And then we're just going to spend time answering questions. We're going to A those cues. It's just going to stick around. It's going to be it.
So
I know. We're going to get a like shadow banned on YouTube for this vulgar content. Also, before we dive into the first act, pointing out that we are dropping a tip every single day here on YouTube in the form of a YouTube short that you can get notified of when it goes live. If you're subscribed and you hit that notification bell, your phone will tell you when it goes up. And normally I'm not a fan of more notifications on your phone, but I make an exception for this because I know we're putting out valuable content for it and we're not just trying to waste your time. Chris saying I'm word happy. I'm something today. I'm something. All right. Let's talk about the first act. And it's nice because I like to come up with like 3 talking points for this little intro part to our show. And the first act has 3 beats to it. And so we're just going to talk about those 3 beats. Now, if you want an in-depth look at them, I suggest you go and check out that video, the lesson that I linked in the chat. And you can check out the information in the 60-day novel challenge template. But let's briefly go over what each of them are. So the first one, the way that you open most stories is through the ordinary world. And the ordinary world, I thought this the other day. I thought, no, Doug, you're not going to say it, but I'm going to say it now. The ordinary world is not the boardinary world. It is not boring. It is, but that's my worry when people hear something like ordinary, when they think about establishing what a character's every day is like. I don't want your mind drifting to mundanity. I don't want it drifting to something slow or useless or just page filler, because that's not the point of it. Now, we had a workshop last week in W Academy where we talked about the first act. We got into great detail about it, and I'm not going to cover everything that we covered there because it was a 3-hour long workshop, and that recording will be up by the end of the day today if anyone in W Academy or trialing wants to check it out. But one of the big things I want people to take away from it is that we did all this work crafting your character's backstory, coming up with what we call the big hurt and the lie. The reason that's so important and how it ties to this first beat of your story, the ordinary world, is that the ordinary world has been crafted by your character's lie, because the lie exists to keep your character safe from experiencing the trauma or the pain or the discomfort that they experienced once before. And so now they've set themselves up in a place where that can't happen again, at least as far as they can control it. And you don't want to be explicit about this, but when you're figuring out what does my character do before the inciting incident, this is something that you can lean on, is thinking about how have they set themselves up in a place to not experience the big hurt again. And though it's not the most traumatic incident, I was thinking about The Hobbit the other day and how this theorizing works with it. And after a little bit of digging, we found that Bilbo doesn't, like, he has this urge to go on adventure, but something's telling him no, he shouldn't, because he's a hobbit. He's supposed to live in the Shire. And so what do you know? When The Hobbit starts, he's in the Shire where nobody adventures, where everyone's just eating and smoking and having a good time. And if you think about leaving, well, that's the craziest thing that you could ever say. That life is informed by the lie, by him telling himself, hey, I'm not supposed to be adventuring. I'm supposed to be living this mundane life. Right? And you can take this theory and apply it to virtually any ordinary world in some form or another. Hank, Abby, I just spent a lot of time chatting.
So I have a weird middle grade piece that I could insert here that I don't wonder if it doesn't apply to perhaps everyone. So I had Nathan Bransford developmentally edit one of my manuscripts a while ago. So I don't know if anybody knows Nathan Bransford, but he's got an excellent writing blog, by the way, with bazillions of articles on there, and they're all so good, so good. He writes middle grade himself, and he does a lot with middle grade. And so one of the things that he told me was, if at the beginning, he's like, we're talking 25, 30 pages tops, just before your inciting incident, he said, send your main character on a mini quest in their ordinary world that is going to somehow reflect what it is that the bigger quest is going to be about. And he's like, if you can do that and pull it off, he's like, you have just leveled up your writing. Yeah. And I was like, dang, I like that. And so anyway, I did that. I did that with my book that's coming out in November. I did it with the book that I was working on with him. And it was a really great way, I think, to kick off your adventure, because you see your main character making a bunch of mistakes in their ordinary world. And then your inciting incident is going to essentially challenge them to start to change.
I like that. I like that quite a bit. Hank, do you have any thoughts on the ordinary world or on opening a story in general?
I don't have anything that would contradict what you guys have said already. I don't think I have anything to add to that, or not contradict it, but yeah, I mean, what you guys said, I totally agree.
Excellent. Now, some people get hung up on numbers, like how much of my book should be the ordinary world. I advise you not to stress so much about it. You do what needs to be done. You include what needs to be included and what sets us up for the rest of the story. Some people go up to 10% of it, and that what 10% is, I mean, obviously reflects on how long your actual story is. So a fantasy novel will spend more time establishing what is ordinary and the world itself than something like a 50,000 word urban fantasy, for example.
Can I just say that I'm not a fan of the writing methods that lay out percentages? For instance, Save the Cat. This should happen within the first. I think that people get wrapped up in that so much that they're like, I've got to trim these 2 pages because it's going to mess up my. I think that
you can move it around.
The way I think that does more harm than good. I understand why it's there. I get it, but I don't like it.
It helps. I think where it helps more is more towards the middle of it when you're looking at the ranges, and I forget all the 27 beats of Save the Cat. I feel like I always get the number wrong too. But if you're trying to stick to more or less a proven structure, and you're spending 20% of your novel on one beat when you're supposed to be spending 5% of it, that's an easy spot check to be like, okay, my pacing's off here.
Yeah.
But I agree. I don't like people getting bogged down in the, like minutiae of, like, oh, this is 5.1% instead of 5%. I need to trim something.
Unless you've written a really engaging 20%. For every rule we lay out, there's something that contradicts that rule that, guidelines like
you can still make it work if it doesn't fit the formula. The formula is there because somebody has just analyzed a huge body of literature to see what the commonalities are for things that do work. So like for me, I just use it to check my work is what I do. And I'm like, okay, so this piece is supposed to be kind of at the beginning. Like
maybe I'm just Gen X and don't like being told what to do.
I don't either. Hank.
You ever think that no generation likes being told what to do?
Well, no generation likes the generation before them.
Yeah.
To do.
Right. Is that why my nephews don't listen to me?
Yes.
And they're poor. Okay.
Either.
Athena has a question here, and actually, if we can bank that for just a second, we'll go over what the inciting incident is, and then we'll come back to that one. So let's quickly discuss it. The inciting incident is the thing that kicks off your actual story. It's the thing that comes in, and its sole purpose is to disrupt. It takes this ordinary world that your character is living in and that you've established, and it throws a monkey wrench in it, and it makes it so that the world that existed before cannot exist in the exact same way after this event. And that might be something dangerous. It might be something more like a mindset change. So if we think about The Hobbit again, I'm just ad-libbing the Hobbit here because I didn't prep notes for this talking about these story beats with it. But Gandalf comes in and he's like, hey, I got this sweet quest to go on, but there's a dragon and we're gonna go recover some gold in the mountain and stuff. And Bilbo's like, no, that's okay. But then he dwells on it for a little bit, right? His life of non-adventure cannot exist anymore because he keeps obsessing over this potential for adventure. The Hobbit's also not a great example because you can more easily apply it to the hero's journey, but the 3x structure can be applied to the hero's journey as well. So just roll with me here. For a better version of it, again, that workshop that'll be up by the end of the day, we talk about Moana in that one, which is just a fantastic movie.
So hard not to sing when you said that.
So the inciting incident, when we're talking about storycraft and theory, again, this is something where you can leverage the lie as well. It doesn't have to be explicit, but you are able to really tap into your characters' fears and their flaws because you know what the biggest, deepest one is. And so you can start picking at that, because after this point, everything that we're throwing at our character is going to be picking at their lie. It's going to be making them retreat into it for safety, or it's going to be exposing the holes in that armor and showing them that there is a better way to do things. Now, you don't need to do that, but it's like we said before, you can have a salad with or without dressing. It all depends on how much you want to put in and get out of a story beat. So, my friends, I turn to you. Tell me about your inciting incidents.
Hold on. I'm buying Kill the Dog right now, which somebody brought up in the chat. Oh. I was like, we're talking about Save the Cat, Kill the Dog. I was like, I'm in. What's the other side of this? So
I don't know if I can buy it just based off of the title.
Well, I mean, I get what it's doing. It's the opposite of Saving the Cat. So I can respect that. Yeah.
I will say, this is a rule in our house. Any movie where the dog dies, it's out of here. I will 100%. Watch a demon-possessed child, which I'm adamantly against, before I watch someone murder a dog. That's just, these are just 100%. These are just, personal rules I have.
I agree. Okay, Hank, tell me about your inciting incident.
I've kind of I've talked about this, I feel like, ad nauseum, but I literally in this book that I'm writing now, Stu, my primary protagonist, literally stumbles over a dead body. Like, that was the most on the nose thing that I could come up with. If we're gonna write this very specific genre fiction, and I want to go hard on the tropes, literally stumbling over a dead body is the most on the nose thing you could do. So that is literally my inciting incident. He stumbles over a dead body.
Excellent. Abby, I know yours is different, but
so it is totally different. But in the first chapter of each of these chapter books, the chapters all sort of mirror each other. There's actually, my friend Jeff, who works for DreamWorks, calls it the story engine, which I actually really love the idea of that, especially when you're writing for kids, that they're predictable is not bad when you're talking about this age that I'm writing for, because they're newly independent readers. We're talking about kids who are 5, 6 years old. They're probably sitting down and reading on their own for the very first time. They may have a parent looking over their shoulder, but the fact that they can predict what comes next is what propels them forward to read. It gives them the confidence. And so the first chapter of each of these books, Stu receives a postcard from his Dunkel Packard. That's Duck Uncle, for those of you not familiar with the term. And Dunkel Packard, instead of being a north-south flying duck, is an east-west flying duck, because he doesn't like to be like anyone else, and neither does Stu. And so he flies all over the world eating weird food, and he writes Stu back about his culinary delights, essentially. So Stu receives a postcard, and in this one, his Dunkel Packard is raving about Limburger cheese. And so Stu sets out to try and find Limburger cheese. And loses his lunchbox.
It's really interesting, because in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, Abby's going to tell us about her chapter book, and prepare to have all your theory thrown out the window, Doug. Well, she talks about something that's 10,000 words long and meant for younger minds. But you thoroughly explained there that Stu has this desire to be different than everyone else, right? And it's the inciting incident is like, hey, there's this cheese. Oh, I really want to try the cheese, because it's playing on that fact that he's not like everyone else. So it's not necessarily a lie, because the audience wouldn't understand Stu the duck having a lie, right? But it is something from his character that you are directly poking at with the inciting incident. And the same can be said for any novel at any age then.
Right? Well, my duck tells him no people business. And so, of course, what is he going to want to do? Have some people business.
Yeah, you can't tell me, Ma.
Tell me I can't have people business.
And it's nice because Hank's inciting incident is very jarring. Tripping over a dead body, not a pleasant experience. Don't wish that on anyone. Someone else's inciting incident might be a fight or an explosion or something big and violent. Right. Yours is a letter. Mine is a job contract, pushing the protagonist to go and figure out why Stu the Clown is killing people and what Stu the Clown actually is. And those are all different inciting incidents. And so I don't want people walking away from this either thinking that an inciting incident has to be this big flashy thing. Remember, it's a disruptor. It's not an explosion. It can be an explosion because an explosion has a lot of potential to disrupt the ordinary world, right? But it doesn't have to be. It just has to be something that makes it so the protagonist cannot return to what their normal was 5 seconds before, right? I know we're saving a lot of questions till the end, but there was that one from Athena that was about the inciting incident.
Ella's got one about inciting incidents too. So
okay, let's do Athena's and then we'll do Ella's. So inciting incident happened at 22,000 words. Do we think it's too soon or too late? My current word goal is like 100,000 words. As Hank said before, you don't have to subscribe to very specific percentages. What I would point out is that the story doesn't really start until the inciting incident. Like when we're talking about the external and internal conflict, there is no motion in that until the inciting incident to push the character into that motion. The ordinary world is important for establishing things about the character, about the lore, the setting, the themes you want to play into, the conflicts you want to explore, but there isn't any motion there. So if you're spending a fifth of the book, more than a fifth of the book, establishing that and not having that dynamic action in it, that change and those stakes that Abby talked about in today's tips, then you might have an issue with your pacing. So is there stuff that you can pull from that 22,000 word bank of stuff right now and sprinkle it in later? Or is there a way you can move the inciting incident up and then have more stuff established as you go?
Or did you just need to write it for yourself, but it doesn't necessarily even have to be in the story? But guess what? That's a December Athena problem. That is not a November Athena problem. So keep on trucking.
Yeah, while you're drafting and trying to connect the dots of your story is not the time to worry about where each beat falls on the path. Get the story told. Then that's a story mechanic problem for second and third revisions.
You also might not even be able to tell yourself, right? This might be a feedback thing that you need to figure out where's the pacing too slow, where can I move stuff around. This might be like an alpha reader or critique partner question.
All right. Let me see. You want me to put Ella's question up? I got it right here.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Here we go. My inciting incident is my first chapter. And then we switch to her ordinary world when she's reflecting on whether she should go on the journey or not. Do you realize that you can actually have, so like in Save the Cat, like if we're just using that as the example. So they call it something different in Save the Cat because it's not inciting incident. They call it a catalyst, but it's all the same
inciting incident
thing. Same thing. Yeah. Your opening image, your theme stated, your setup, and your catalyst can all happen in the same chapter. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. And as a matter of fact, most middle grade writers try and make that inciting incident happen as quickly as possible because that's what keeps kids turning pages. And I don't think adults are any different than kids. We're just big kids. That's all we are. So
we're worse.
Nothing. You know what? You are right on the money. We are probably worse.
So there's a term for this. It's called in medias res, and it means in the midst of things or in the middle of action, however you want to translate it. And is when you start with the inciting incident and you progress from there, and then the stuff that you would establish in the ordinary world, you are now establishing in the scenes and chapters that follow. And it's perfectly okay to do that. You just need to make sure that, again, this is more a revision thing, but when you get to that, you need to make sure that you have established enough in an organic way in the scenes and chapters that follow. Show, don't tell is going to be your best friend for that.
You also have to just make sure, if you are literally starting in the middle of the action, that your reader has enough context to care. Because I wrote my first book and I was working with Jenny Nash as my book coach. And I already had, 7 or 8 chapters written when I started working with her. So I gave her those chapters and she was like, an agent's not even going to make it off your first page. She's like, what the heck is even happening? And I was like, I started in medias res. I was like, it was this chase scene. It's happening through the woods. I had the crunching leaves and they were running. And all of a sudden, the man who stole the little girl's library book turns into this dog. And I'm like, oh man, that's going to make people want to keep reading. Like, why did he turn into a dog? And she's like, why is a little girl chasing a full-grown man through the woods because he stole her library book? Jenny's like, I am so concerned for what is happening right now. I don't think you've set the context you think you're setting. And I was like, oh, yeah, that stings. But it's true, because if you just confuse the reader, they're going to put it down. So just make sure that if you're starting in the inciting incident, it's an amazing way to start, as long as you give the reader context and you give them a reason to care. So that's what I think you've really got to hit.
You also need to understand what you're giving up as a result of that, aside from not just who the character is, but focusing on that why they care aspect. The ordinary world exists largely so that we know who the character is before their journey.
Invested.
Yeah, exactly. We need to be invested, because the outcome does not matter if we don't know who they were, where they're coming from. And again, you can do this successfully. There are excellent books out there that start in medias res. But there's a reason that most books do not, right? Because we need this time to get acquainted to stuff. So if it works for your story, that's excellent. Just make sure you're still establishing what we need to know after that. And as Abby said, we care about this inciting incident before we're just flung into it. Hank's story could start out with Stu tripping over a dead body. It could literally be, I tripped over a dead body today, as the first line. It'd be a compelling first line, right? But it can just as easily start out with figuring out who Stu is, understanding his relationship and his financial troubles as he's trying to become this author and working out of his girlfriend's bookstore, right?
They live separately, but she runs a bookstore and he has a table there where he shows up and writes every day. So it opens with him in his house with his dog, and he's going through these first 3 chapters that he writes and rewrites over and over and over again. And you get the scope of kind of what his inner turmoil is. Then he goes to walk the dog, literally trips over a dead body. And then hilarity.
The inner turmoil is important there, because if any one of us were to trip over a dead body, call the police. Okay, my job here is done. Maybe some therapy to deal with this, but that's it. Right? Now, if the story starts out with, I tripped over a body today, okay, I'm going to make a podcast out of this. Why? You psycho. Now you're meddling with an investigation. You're going to jail. Like, so we need to understand what's happening. Okay. All right. We have one more beat to get through, and it's kind of actually linked to this one, because Ella says here, then we switch to her ordinary world when she's reflecting on whether she should go on the journey or not. And that reflection period we call the first plot point, or plot point 1, or the point of no return for some folks. And this is what happens after the inciting incident. So the ordinary world is generally a series of scenes. It's a multi-scene beat. The inciting incident is almost always a single scene. A thing happens, and then we have to deal with it, because as we've mentioned a couple times throughout these live shows, the actual action isn't that important. It's the reaction that matters more. It's the effect that it has on the characters and what they decide to do afterwards. And that's where this plot beat comes in, the first plot point. This is where they react to the inciting incident, and they make the decision to leave their ordinary world and to pursue this new goal. And it's scary, and it's full of dangers, and it's full of the unknown, and it pushes us into the second act, where all the other cool stuff happens that we're going to be talking about next week. So this is sometimes lumped in with the inciting incident, especially if you're really relying on like grade 10 English class. This is usually lumped into it. But it is a separate beat, and it can be multiple scenes, especially if you're looking at something like the hero's journey. If you're looking at The Hobbit, then there are different conversations that happen. There's internal reflection. There's talking to people about what the consequences are. There's trying to figure out if you're actually equipped for this. There's sometimes equipping yourself for this, preparing yourself to leave your normal world and pursue this new quest or mission or goal. So that is our third and final plot or story beat, in the first act, and it is arguably the most important one. Hank, Abby, any thoughts on that? Nothing?
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Excellent. I still need
How does it apply? That's the only question, right? How do you apply
Yes.
it in your own work? We sit on my foot again.
And so if we turn back to the lie that your character believes to be true, this is a time when the inciting incident comes in and it says, hey, things are different. You need to go on this new goal to rectify things, to do something, right? Whatever the objective is. In this beat, in the first plot point, their lie is going to be like, no, that's a bad idea. Like, oh, you just met someone who you want to start dating. Oh, but remember that time that he broke up with you? Terrible idea. We don't want that to happen again, right? Oh, you want to go get treasure from underneath a dragon in a mountain way off yonder? Oh, well, that sounds pretty scary, and we're pretty comfortable here. For Moana, you want to go save the island and the ocean by restoring the heart of Te Fiti? Well, your people need you here, and it's very selfish of you to leave the island for this quest, right? And so the character has to wrestle with this idea, and are like usually more on top of that too, but at the core it is their lie that they're wrestling with.
You know an awfully lot about Moana.
It's a great movie. It's so good. Moana 2, but
Checks
Moana
out.
1.
Okay.
And it's just I like choosing things that I know a lot of people have seen, because like I'll read less well-known books, or I'll read like a horror novel, and I know that 98% of the people that are watching right now don't read horror, so what am I going to do comparing it to like an Adam Neville book? So yeah,
I always use The Princess Bride.
Oh yeah, The Princess Bride is a good one
that's
too.
a good one. Yeah.
Okay. I guess, do we just turn to questions now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
as I see them come through.
Let's do it.
Excellent. And a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We have a ton of time dedicated to this. Hopefully we're out of here by 3:30, but hey, if we got to stay longer, we got to stay longer. But Hank's been on camera between the sprints and the the meeting that we had just before that, our company meeting.
Since
my
10
friend's been in
a.m.
front of screen. Yeah.
That's why Hank's so quiet today. We'll give him a free pass.
Thursdays are draining for him. All right, Abby, go ahead.
I'm scrolling. I made a mistake and I scrolled all the way back to the beginning of the chat just to make sure I didn't miss anybody's question that I had starred. Let's see. Okay, this one's a silly one, but just because I'm starting, this was the first question I saw. They want merch. The people want merch.
They always want merch.
They want merch. So we got to remember.
Robert, are you still in the chat?
Hopefully,
Robert. Definitely a Robert question.
All right. So let's see. Hold on. I'm scrolling. Okay. Oh, another non-writing question that you can answer, Doug, while I scroll.
Okay.
What's up with your ceiling?
It's changed. I hope it hasn't. Nothing's different for me.
All right. Here's the good one.
But Bon, you're freaking me out now, so please. What's that face in the corner? What's that hand reaching down to grab your head, Doug?
Okay, so here's the question. How do you differentiate text from regular text in your writing? And so funny that you would ask that, because I have a book sitting right here that is completely written in text messages. It's called TBH, This Is So Awkward. So it actually does it just like this. So this is more of a formatting thing. It goes back and forth between left justified and right justified. And they do not put it in italics or anything like that. But because literally the entire book is written in a series of text messages, they set it up to look just like a phone. Now, if you are doing it in your Dabble project and you are going back and forth, is there a way to just write justify text in Dabble? I don't think that there is.
No, but we have more formatting capability coming to Dabble in the new year. But if let's say this is a text message here. If you highlight it, this quote button has two different options to it. So you click it once and it's going to center it and italicize it. You click it again and it's going to give you a little extra space and make it all justified a little bit to the right, like all indented. So that differentiates it. You also have the option of just italicizing it. But like you said, Abby, that's more a formatting.
That's at the end of your novel. So like, yeah. I mean, if it was me and it was just a single text message and you did not have a reply in there, I think what I would do is highlight it and do that first click underneath the quotes button that just center justifies it, because what it will do is when you export that file, you will see very quickly, oh yeah, that's the spot where I have text messaging. And then you can decide in Vellum or Atticus or whatever program you might be using, how it is that you want to actually format that. But if you're going back and forth between two people, I think what I would do as I was writing it is just put like in all capital letters, the person's name with like a colon or semicolon, whatever semicolon, and then write what you want and italicize it. And just that way, when you go back to format later, you're going to pretty clearly see where it is. I might even bold their name, just something to make it stick out so that you remember. It just makes it easier for you to find it to format later.
Yeah.
So, okay.
We get this kind of question a lot too about formatting thoughts and internal dialogue. It's the same kind of thing. For most people, that's going to be italicizing when you do go to format it for publication. But there's various ways that I've seen it done, or like journal entries or any kind of epistolary communication. You're going to want to do something that looks substantially different. But when you're actually formatting it for publication, I've seen people like do newsletter or newspaper cutouts. I've seen them do like journal entries, lab reports or something on the paper.
There's all sorts of things you can do. I think the key is whatever it is you choose. It almost doesn't matter what you choose to do. When you choose it, just be consistent when you go to format it later, because then the reader will start to recognize it and they'll know exactly what it is and you don't have to worry about explaining. And then Claire opens this letter and it read, and then they'll just see the letter and they'll know what it is. And then, they'll sort of fill in the blanks. Okay, so Emily has a question. So an ordinary world in a cozy mystery is the everyday life without the murder. Is it without the murder, or would you say before the murder?
I would say before the murder. Yes. I was going to say unless you're like the Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote, where her ordinary world is she trips over dead bodies, but it's not supposed to be. She's an author in this cozy little Maine town, and there just happens to be dead bodies that
has a story engine too.
Yes, that stack up like cordwood, and but the ordinary world should be the interesting little quirks and things that make up their daily life that the dead body interferes with. I think in a cozy mystery, that's what you're looking for, is this ordinary that the dead body interferes with. You're looking for that cross section, that what's the mathematical term? The perpendicular bisector of their ordinary world.
And like the dot on the graph.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I would say the dead body interrupts the ordinary world.
Yeah. But remember, not boardinary world. So but in all seriousness, that means that in your ordinary world, you're going to want to plant something that you can then pull in later, or that ties into the theme. It's not just, here's, Abby, she's living her normal life on the farm, and then the murder happens. It's Abby going to the bakery and running into someone who has a problem, and then along the way, while solving the murder, we resolve that problem too, or that problem gets in the way. You want in your, like, I'm writing an episodic series right now, and I'm writing the second book for it. And so the ordinary world is my character going and shutting down a witch who's selling love potions, right? And that's her ordinary. She deals with monsters and witches and love potions and all that. But that witch places a curse on her that then goes throughout the story, and it's tied to the theme. Right? Just to have like a cold open that doesn't do anything is not the purpose of the ordinary world.
Okay, I've got another one right here from TW. What are the rules around writing an extract of a letter or singing a song? Are there particular formats for that? So we kind of touched on that. I don't know. Would you do, if a character was singing, would you just put it in quotation marks and say she sang, or say she sang with the semicolon and then put the lines of the song and then justify it?
I typically, when writing, if it's internal monologue, or I'm trying to think if I've ever written someone singing, I think I just italicized it, and then with a notation that I was singing along with the radio, and then italicized the line or whatever. I don't typically do a lot of that because you have to be careful when quoting a
if
song.
you're making up your own song,
but if you're making up your own, so that's how I would do it. That's by no means the only way to do it, but that's just what I've done.
I'm thinking in fantasy, there's not a lot of singing, but there's singing. But when it does happen, it's normally like a bard singing, or like a group of fairies singing or something. It's rarely, or sailors singing, and it's rarely like the main character or the perspective character or a character singing. They're in the tavern while the sailors are singing. And if that's the case, then I would like to italicize it and kind of like center justify, not center it, but like the second quote option in Dabble, where it squishes it in a little bit. Another example, I'm re-listening to Empire of the Vampire, and there's a lot of religion in the world building, and so the religious people will quote lines of their scripture. But if someone were to be reading an entire like paragraph of scripture, I'd do the same thing. So if they're listing off a line, then I put it in normal quotes because they're saying it. But if they're reading a passage, then I put it in italics and format it a little bit.
All right. I got one here from NJ. What is the best way to communicate time passing in your story? How much time is my question?
There's no best way. Throwing that out there. Depends on your story.
Yeah.
And we can talk about the different ways to do it. Hank, I feel like I'd cut you off.
No, I was going to say exactly what you said. There's no great way to do it. I have used references to things in the story world. For instance, an updated newspaper. Not that those are a thing anymore. Things like that. There's no great way to do it. You just have to find ways in your world to signal the passage of in a way that makes sense, that feels natural and not just a contrived thing that you threw in to do that. And I can't tell you what that is. It all depends on the world you've built and how you're going to show that. I feel like the more I talk, the dumber I sound. So
no.
So if there's a big passage of time in between parts of your story or chapters, some people will somehow notate that at the beginning, that time has passed. Fall, spring, whatever. There's, if that's a really important element to your story, you could structure your story based on the passage of time. It's like, for me, it's like, then the bell rang the second period. I lean into things that would regularly happen during like the school day or things like that. Or you could just say on Wednesday morning, like you just start the chapter on Wednesday morning. And if you just state it and move on with life, the reader's just going to read it and they're going to go along for the ride.
Yeah.
True. So sometimes things like that just disappear if you just state it and go. So get in, get out sort of thing.
Yeah. This is a good example of when telling is perfectly fine in terms of our show don't tell. You just need to establish that time has passed. Now you don't want to, you can, it was Wednesday morning we went and did this. It's perfectly fine. Saying it's now Wednesday is janky. It's not great. Saying
on Wednesday morning the air was crisp and cool.
Yeah, right. Or the guard patrols had doubled over the last week since the explosion. You're established. You just don't want it to be a blunt expression of time. You want it to work with the rest of your prose, and if you can tie in more details to it, like how the weather is, like how the guard patrols have changed, that's better.
Something, yeah.
Now, some people will say that 6 months later, it's a-okay. Which is sure, just be like consistent with it, I guess. And let's go ahead, Hank.
I was going to say that Abby's example of the chapter header with spring 2025 or whatever is a good way to do that, especially if you have consistent time hops in there. Where that gets weird is if you have one time hop in the story, and so every chapter heading, it's still spring 2025, it's still spring 2025, and then all of a sudden fall 2025, and then
unless you break your story into two parts and you label the first part spring 2025 and the second part fall 2025. So
right. But I feel like if you're going to do that, it needs to be enough of a tone change to justify that splitting the book.
Yeah, because there's a lot of information that you are just being like, hey, that doesn't matter to this story. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
You ready for the next one?
Ready.
Let's do it. How do you approach the inciting incident in book 2 or 3 of a series? Take it away, Doug.
Excellent question. Okay, so they're structured to both a book and the series itself. So if you're writing book 2, there is still the external conflict. There's still the internal conflict in your character. There's still arcs and whatnot. So your ordinary world is now the outcome of what the first book was. So it's different than the initial ordinary world, but it's still an ordinary world. It is their new normal, to pull back a term we haven't used in 4 years or something. It's their new normal, and so then an inciting incident comes in, changes that up, and sends them on a new arc, a new journey, a new line of discovery. Otherwise it's the exact same, right? And it's just this story, book 2, needs to then fit into your series story, but book 2 still has all the beats that we're talking about.
All right, Ella's got a question. My character needs to go because of her lie. Everyone is like, no, don't go. But her lie is like, yes, go. Is that okay? She still feels conflicted.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's excellent. I think that's fantastic, because that is showing how much of a hold the lie has on her. And so when she does change, we now see how far she's come from where she was at the beginning. Right? I think that's great. I think an inciting incident that doesn't pick on the lie is just a weaker. It's not a bad inciting incident. It's just not as strong as it could be.
Yeah, and I think characters feeling conflicted is what storytelling is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Berlin wants to know if you ever make a format to have pages or a way to calculate how many pages approximately you've written. So it actually at the bottom does give you an approximation, but when you export, you can have page numbers when you export. We just have a continuous scroll while you write. So down there in the bottom, right, Doug, it says, God, I can't read because I'm blind.
12 pages.
12
2,800
pages.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the down and dirty way of estimating is 250 words per page. And that's
industry standard.
Yeah, that's not always going to be exactly true, but it's going to be close enough.
Yeah.
And that's also a fun way if you're just learning to write or just writing your first couple books and you're still kind of figuring out structures, pull a book off your shelf and look at how many pages it is. And, so this Fiona Davis book is 349 pages. Multiply that by 250 and you'll get a rough word count. And you pick a few books in your genre that you're looking at, look how many pages they are, multiply that by 250, and you get a really I start to say really rough, but it's actually a pretty good prediction of what is the expectation in your genre.
Okay, it makes me laugh though, because I was trying to figure out the average word count in a Junie B. Jones book. And I went online and there was a website that had just taken the, 86 pages in Junie B. Jones and multiplied it by 250 and given some enormous word count for the book. And I was like, oh, I know what they did. They multiplied that by 250.
Silly people.
So silly. Silly internet.
And I know Bon did answer the pages question before, but I didn't take it out of the bank because I wanted to share it. Thanks, Bon, for answering that.
Okay, so here we go. Nini says, long question. So I'm kind of struggling with emphasizing my inciting incident. The one given to the reader is, this place is a cult. I need to save these people. But the real inciting incident, hold on, I got to get closer to the screen. Inciting incident is it goes down to the next thing. Yeah. The protagonist entering this cult itself. It's not a cult, but a sanctuary. How can I emphasize
what a cult member would say?
Then they offer you Kool-Aid.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, so I'm struggling with the inciting incident. The one given to the reader is, this place is a cult. I need to save these people. But the real inciting incident is the protagonist entering the cult itself. It's not okay. So, but it seems like the one given to the reader is, this place is a cult. I need to save these people. That's the motivation of the protagonist. But the actual inciting incident
believes it, right?
Yeah,
not the reader, but the protagonist.
That's what I'm getting from this. And then the inciting incident is the protagonist entering the cult itself. How can I emphasize both? This is something that requires more of a conversation than I think we can have here. But
because I wonder, is that not the point of the story? Is the reader finding out at the same time as the protagonist that it's not a cult, it's a sanctuary? And if so, you don't need to emphasize the fact that it's a sanctuary at the beginning, but you do need to plant some clues that later on the reader will be like, oh my God, why didn't I see that?
Yeah.
Super subtle. Plant them in.
Yeah.
Well, it also depends on your perspective, because if the outside world is crazy, they will perceive the sanctuary as a cult, and you can play it both ways.
Yeah.
But you need to highlight the differences between the ordinary world and this cult / sanctuary, and explain the differences, and explain, I don't mean literally explain it, show how the outside world or the sanctuary is welcoming, or you need to
conversations.
Yes. You don't need to say the outside world is crazy. These people are not. You need to show it through the character interactions and the contrast of how the outside world treats people versus the sanctuary.
Yeah.
But if the outside world is crazy and the inside are not, the outside people will think this is a cult, and this is actually a great source of conflict that you can play on. That these people think it's a cult, it's really not, but it's because they're crazy, not us.
This would be an interesting story to have multiple perspectives in.
Yeah,
as well.
would.
Someone inside the cult and someone outside of it.
It would.
Not knowing anything else about the story. Just
Right.
thinking that would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all like, we're in. Let's dissect this.
Let the reader decide who's.
All right, let's see. I typically avoid he said, she said, etc., but would use. Oh wait,
I started this one because there was a whole conversation going on about this, and Bond said that I said was okay, which is what I saw first. I'm like, when did I say that? But it's true, because first we have a whole course on writing dang good dialogue, which if you are in Dabble Premium or part of Dabble U Academy, you have access to, and you should go and take it. We have a workshop recording for it as well. Said is not right now, right? Not you're too busy now. Said is perfectly okay. And for most authors and editors and agents and publishers, said is what is preferred most of the time. Now there are a couple options that we can use instead of said. We can use adverb said, softly said, loudly said, what have you. We can use it, which is the weakest option of them all, to be clear, because adverbs are just weaker. Because instead of saying softly said, we can say whispered, we can say muttered, we can say mumbled, we can say I don't know, wept or something. That's not even quiet. Scratch that one. Those are your real options, though, when it comes to dialogue tags. And dialogue tags are things that describe who said what and how they said them. We use said so much, right? He said, she said, they said, because it is neutral and it kind of fades away into the background. So if we don't need to draw attention to something, we use said, because then the focus is on the dialogue and the action that happens around it, not on how the voice was changed as they were speaking. We also like said because if we think about one of our golden rules of show don't tell when it's appropriate, which is a lot of the time, the dialogue itself and the actions that the character are doing can tell us how they are saying something. You don't need to tell me they said something angrily or they were furious if their words are angry and they're stomping around or slamming doors. That is much better showing than saying he grumbled or he shouted or whatever, right? He shouted is fine, but you SOB, you did it again, he said, and slammed the door in my face. Like that's far more effective than just telling me that he shouted, because that's what that kind of dialogue tag is. You're telling me what happened. That said, it can be very evocative to use these kinds of dialogue tags, like she inhaled then burst out into song. That's a lovely line right there. But the more you use lines like that, the less effective they become, and the more it draws out your pacing. All the cons of telling instead of showing come into play here. It might sound nice, but you keep doing it over and over again. Suddenly you have an extra 20,000 words in your story that are only describing how people speak.
So my favorite is to just not use he said, she said, period at all. Put the dialogue in quotation marks and put the action tag at the end. So completely new sentence and some action that happened around it. That's like the thing that I've noticed is more, we'll say, popular these days.
Yeah.
But I've always been told he said, she said literally disappears for the reader. It just disappears.
I have a bit of a hot take. It's not necessarily a hot take, but I think it's more it's indicative of the world we live in now. He said, she said, yes, disappears on the page.
Mhm.
When you're reading it, you ignore those. But we are now in a world where audiobooks are the fastest growing market in publishing. So he said, she said disappears on the page, but we have an entire segment of the readership, possibly 50% or more of our readership is listening to your books. And he said, she said is going to start ringing in your ears if it's every other line.
Yeah.
So what I have over the last few years been developing is working on my character voice more and more so that I don't have to tell you who's speaking. I obviously have to begin the story by establishing these characters, and there's going to be some of this telling and not showing to get my point across. And then at some point, hopefully very early in the book, I can fade those out and the characters stand out. And then if my audiobook narrator is clever enough to pick that up, then he or she will develop voices to go along with that, and it becomes a whole experience. So yes, he said, she said disappears on the page, but we also have to be cognizant that our writing is going beyond the page.
Yeah. And I think I used this example before, but I listened to, I think it was Faded by Benedict Jacka, and it's an urban fantasy. And in the opening, our main character, I think his name is Alex, goes and meets his buddies at the pub for a pint, and they're talking, they're having conversation, and everyone was having, you know, a 5-word line of dialogue followed by he said, or Bob said, or Hank said, or Abby said. And when you're reading it, that honestly, it might have been a little repetitive reading it because it was so short. And then but when you're listening to it, blah, 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 he said, blah, 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 he said, blah, 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 Abby said, blah, 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 Hank said. It sounds repetitive, which is not a dialogue tag problem. It's a pacing of your prose problem, because there needs to be more going on or more intentional dialogue. Like, it was a lot of small talk at the same time, which doesn't lend itself well to any writing. But Hank, you're absolutely right. It's focus on that voice and layer in those actions, right? Even take out Abby said, and, you know, Abby took another swig of her beer or something. Tells me who's talking, gives me some dynamic action to it. We move on to the next line.
And in your editing, this is a second draft or third draft issue, not a first draft. Look over your pages that you have written, like physically look at, not read, look at the presentation of the text. If you've got a page full of choppy, 5-6 sentence, 5-6 word sentences, or you've got big blocks of text, that's going to read clunkily. Vary that up, and it's a good exercise to just look at how the visual representation of your paragraphs are, and make sure that's varied, because it's going to read varied and it's going to sound better.
Well, I'm saying here, I would hope if they're doing voices in an audiobook, they were allowed to skip saying she said, and to a degree sometimes yes. So if they're doing like a dramatization, yes, like they just released the Harry Potter books with this star-studded cast, right? But if you have one person doing all the voices, then it can get a little difficult there. You also run into issues with, if you're publishing through like indie publishing through ACX, you need like 98% of what is said and what is written to match up to let Whisper Sync do its thing. And I know, Hank, you use Whisper Sync, right?
Yeah.
Huge proportion does.
Yeah. So if you do that and it's different from the text, it's not gonna line up, and the Whisper Sync is gonna break. Whisper Sync is where you have a Kindle Unlimited book that's available also on Audible, and you can use your Kindle Unlimited subscription to listen to the audiobook, get to a certain point, maybe when you're commuting, and then when you get home you want to pick up your Kindle, it'll go to right where you left off. Well, it has to sync up the exact words so it knows where you were, and then you could pick up and you could read in your, on your Kindle while you're laying in bed, and then the next morning on your commute pick right back up from the audio. But you can't have the freedom to drop, words or phrases like that. But yeah.
Okay, here's one. If you're writing dual POV, should there be 2 different inciting incidents?
No. There is. I think we talked a lot about this last week with main characters versus protagonists, or maybe it was the week before. There is one inciting incident to the story because there is one main external conflict to the story, and there is generally 99% of the time one protagonist who has their internal conflict in the story as well, and everyone else is helping or hindering that journey. Even if you're writing from multiple perspectives, odds are you still have one protagonist who the story is about. You still have very important secondary characters or supporting characters, but you ultimately, for most stories, almost all stories, have one protagonist. And so the inciting incident is the thing that pushes them from their ordinary world. And other people might follow. Sam and Mary and Pip followed Frodo, right? But it's not their story. It's Frodo's story.
All right. Let's do this one. If my 2 main characters meet in the first scene, it's a romance, and the external plot gives the exciting incident, is that okay? So your characters meet, that's your meet cute.
Mm-hmm.
For a romance, the meet cute doesn't necessarily, it's not the inciting incident. I keep saying exciting incident. It is exciting when the meet cute happens. So just lay that out there. But that's not generally, that doesn't mean it has to be the thing to kick off a romance. Do you guys know I'm not like up enough on romance?
Don't worry, I got your back on that one.
Sweet.
Because before she went off to become a super well-off romance and romantasy author, Nisha Tully used to write articles for Dabble, and she wrote one that covers all the different beats for a romance novel. And you can use those to help you figure out if you're on the right track. Generally, I think the meet cute, I'm not a romance expert, but generally the meet cute is the inciting incident, I think, because the whole premise of the story is that someone is finding love and will eventually fall in love. And for that to happen, they need to have something trigger that, and that is the love interest coming into their life. There are other instances where like maybe it's technically getting fired from your job is the thing that sets everything off, because you're a VP of sales at some Manhattan marketing firm, and then you get fired, so you move back home, and that's where you have the meet cute just after that, and technically it's the inciting incident, or the firing was the inciting incident. But at that point, I think if you understand the structure of romance and the beats that are necessary to write a good romance, and those are necessary because romance readers will chew you out if you do something they don't like.
So like fake dating is the one that I like fake dating romance books. I read, a handful of them, but I think deciding to fake date is the inciting incident, but generally the characters already know each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're friends. There's a Netflix Christmas movie with, I think it was Emma Stone in it, where they did this, or it was a Emma, and I'm thinking about that. They were friends, and then I wish I knew more about.
I just look at Hank and laugh because
Hank's trying to rack his brain.
Each other's minds.
Bond fake dating is when the whole story is about them pretending to date, and then they eventually fall in love for real. It's a trope.
Yeah.
It could be.
If you're writing romance, figure out what your trope is, because there are very defined tropes in romance. And like you said, Doug, those readers are voracious and they will eat you alive.
And romance readers go hard on their tropes. It's the one genre that they wear their tropes on their sleeve and will tell you up front, like, yeah, this is how we. Everybody else like hides from tropes and not romance readers. Nope,
they're on all about page descriptions. They're on website pages. Like, people want what they want.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in a fake dating scenario, it could be something like, if you don't bring a girlfriend to Thanksgiving, then you aren't getting your inheritance.
Yeah.
And then you connect with your friend and you're like, oh, let's pretend to be dating, and then we'll go spend lots of money doing fun stuff, and then they fall in love.
And hilarity ensues.
Well, yeah.
I really do love fake dating. I mean, not like in real life. I mean, I don't really want to fake date anybody. Okay, Berlin says, I'm also writing dual POV. What if one character has an inciting incident and the other one is just oblivious, even though he's one being affected by what will happen most?
Then that is the inciting incident for them. It doesn't matter if they realize it or not. If it's affecting them, that is the inciting incident for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless this second person is the protagonist. And it depends on how much it affects them. But you have a lackluster inciting incident if it happens and then your protagonist is like do for a few scenes while other stuff happens to them, and they aren't making like they haven't chosen a new goal and they're making progress or what have you. So, but I think Hank hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah,
there's an inciting incident.
Maybe an example of that would be the Truman Show, where things are happening and he's oblivious to it. Yeah. Like, he's the protagonist, but he doesn't realize that things are happening to him until he does. Like,
I think that's got a long lead, because you're showing an ordinary world
right
for quite some time, and the inciting incident is when he starts to figure out something is wrong. Right.
Yeah. But you're telegraphing it all through the movie, because you know what's going on. He just doesn't. And so you're kind of in on so I guess what I'm saying is that there's some grace that goes along with that, because even though he's not in on the joke, you are. And so it feels like that it is set up earlier than it has.
Yeah.
Are there any other movies or books that
I don't know?
I'm trying to think of a second one.
I know that was that was the obvious one to grab, and
maybe someone in the chat can think of something.
Yeah,
and we can talk about it, because, like, yes, that's an example. Even if we could argue that, like, it's not all ordinary world and there's an inciting incident, but I'm more with Abby on this one, that it's just a long ordinary world and they're just different. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, just to throw it out there, Sandor says, I read romance and I'm sick of all the books are the same. Maybe I'm totally alone in this, but I do like to be surprised. I think that's why I can only read like 2 or 3 romance books, and then I have to turn back to my other thing, because it is repetitive. There is a pattern. And if you're a writer, that makes it even worse, because you know what they're doing. You see how they're setting it up. And so that does get a little tough. But maybe that's just why you're here, is to figure out how to break that trope and make it weird and still be able to sell it.
Well, and I want to point out that, like, people, most of the time when people say all romance books are the same, they're talking down and they have no idea what they're talking about. But when it comes to like a romance reader, and I know we have a lot here, the thrill and the joy in reading it doesn't come from, are they going to end up together? It comes from everything else that happens around it. So sure, we know that there's only one bed at the hotel room, or we know that they're enemies and they're going to end up falling in love at the end of it. But all the stuff all the meat that you pack around that skeleton is what makes the story exciting and unique and fun to read. Right?
Yeah, that's the prayer for Owen Meany. You know what happens at the very beginning, because he says it on the very first page, but you read to find out why. And so you're not reading to find out what happens. And I think that's an excellent point with most romance. I think you're reading it too to sort of be transformed or being transferred back into like this feeling of, being in love and experiencing love for the first time. And that's part of the draw for a lot of these romance books. So
a modern example of that, Abby, the TV show, it was on a couple years ago, 1883. That was kind of part of the big Yellowstone franchise. In episode 1, it begins with the young lady protagonist being killed. You watch her being killed. She's shot up with like 8 arrows, and she keels over dead. And then they go into the story, and then by like the 10th episode or however many there were, you completely forgot that you watched that. And then on the last episode, you see her getting murdered, and you're like, "What? Where'd that?" And you're like, "Oh, I already knew that." But I was so invested in the journey that I completely forgot it.
What a great example of writing and doing exactly what we're talking about. Yeah.
Like the opposite of burying the lead, just putting it right out there. But then, having you forget about it it's crazy. It's great storytelling.
I will say, the more that you write and the more you do things like the 60-day novel challenge, where we talk about structure and we look at these individual beats, the more cursed you're going to be with knowledge, so that when you go to watch a movie, you know what's going to happen because you know how stories are structured, right? It's in
you will annoy all of your family.
You will annoy all your friends. We went to go see Frozen 2. My girlfriend Peg was sitting next to me, and I turned to her, and at the beginning they have the opening scene, and there's the big dam, and there's this and that, and it's just this like beautiful sprawling cartoon scene, and I just went, $10 that dam breaks at the story. And she's like, "No, it won't." I was like, "You watch it." And then as we watched the movie, we got to the end, the dam broke, and she was like, "How did you do that?" And I was like,
because it was shaped like Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
Why would you even show it? I was
like, there was one thing here, another question that NJ asked. Okay. My sci-fi prequel is mostly all my main characters' big hurts. Can I treat the big hurt incidents as the inciting incident? It kind of pushes my characters together. So this gets a little wonky because it's the prequel. Because in general, I like when people have the big hurt and the lie before the story starts. Because like we talked about earlier, the ordinary world is shaped by the lie. The inciting incident is the first time that the lie is going to be tested in a long line of tests. So if you don't have that established already, then it's a lot harder to write the best versions of those beats. But it is possible for this to happen, especially in a prequel. That said, it's when it comes to like character development, it's strange to make a cast of characters who don't have some kind of big flaw for you to use until they all suddenly have a big flaw together because of one moment in your story. So it might be that their big hurt and their lie for the prequel aren't the same as the ones for the main series that you're writing, and they have just flaws, like major flaws that you can exploit. But that's my 2 cents about that. It's a bit of a tricky situation. Again, we're getting some questions in these shows where it warrants like coaching, it warrants discussion that we unfortunately can't have because of the medium. But we'll give our best advice still. Anything to add to this, you two?
No, I think we've hit the end of the questions though.
All right.
Look at us. Hour and a half. Not bad.
Hour and a half. Spot on, which is good because you all and myself have a lot of writing to do. We got 50,000 words to aim for this month for most of us. Some people have different goals. Some people are writing a 10,000 word chapter book, and we'll be done by this time next week, probably.
If I'm not done by the end of this weekend, I'm going to be shocked. I'm really trying to show my role for you guys. So.
And we appreciate it. If you have any other questions,
riding the brakes the whole time.
If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them over in our discussion space for the challenge at Dabble Campus. Otherwise, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Seriously, if you look down, it does not say subscribed, but it says subscribe. You got to click it. Give us a thumbs up for being here, answering all these questions. We do have sprints tomorrow. Abby, are you hosting those tomorrow? Or is Robert?
Oh, actually, yeah, I'm really glad you said that because I am hosting them and I had totally forgotten.
Hey,
so Abby's hosting sprints tomorrow.
Do us a favor. If this was helpful for you, and you have a Facebook account or X or Blue Sky or whatever, and you know other people that would benefit from the discussions that we have, share this over on other social media platforms as well, and share the love with people that you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's nice. That's a nice
on Monday, we have another lesson dropping, and this one is about the first half of the second act, where we're talking about the rising action. We're talking about introducing subplots in your antagonist. It's a great time. And so next week on Thursday, we will be back here for another live show, in addition to all our daily writing sprints and daily tips that are coming at you for the rest of November.
Do you know that dread that you feel when you're on a roller coaster and it's pulling you up that first big incline and you know what's coming, but you're rising? Should the rising action feel like that?
It's a lot like that. And then it's like that, but also there's drops in there.
Right.
But there's still the big drop coming.
Right.
Like, why the heck did I get on this ride in the first place?
Yes, that's what I say every time. Yeah.
Bernadette, you can always message me on at Dabble Campus. Just find my profile and shoot me a message. You can message any admin on there, or should be able to.
I'll do that first.
Pardon?
Only if the admin has DM'd you first.
Oh, really? I have to. Okay, so I'll add that to my to-do list. All right. And other than that, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. Abby, Hank, thanks for joining me up on stage here. Happy writing, everyone, and have a fantastic weekend.
And apparently I'll see y'all tomorrow. So.